Hello everybody and welcome back. In this short video I'm just going to be showing you how you go about feeling the lead down and feature finding with a marker rod or a stiff kind of rod with braid. Braid's the best material to use as it transmit a lot more as there's no stretch in the line. So leading set up here. I've got just a 4 ounce distance lead on there, and I'm just using braid, and I've got a 2.5 test curve rod that I'm using for this. Quite like using this for my leading because the tips just transmit a little bit more. So when I got here, as this is the new syndicate, I had a lead around feature finding, see if I can find any nice spots. So that went down with a nice crack. So to me, I know that's either hard clay, dense silt if you like, nothing, or even gravel possibly. So what I'm going to do now is just tighten the line up, and I'm just pulling it across the area just to see, and that's quite soft, it's pulling quite nicely. There's some areas which I think are little clay spots, which is, or maybe even a rock. That's gone quite tight, so there we go, it's pulled out now. So that could be quite thick silt or rocks, but now all I can feel is the grating of like soft bottom kind of thing. So that's nice. That one was a little bit softer than the last one, which would say to me, it's a bit of a softer area. Still had a donk, so I'd say it's probably still presentable for a decent rig, but it was just a little bit softer. The tip just didn't quite kick back as much, and that's obviously a much softer area, but not like silt if you like. It's more maybe soft clayish, kind of thing. That tip's just pulling along really nicely. Almost no resistance at all. Good thing about using braid and as low a test curve rod as you can is you can let the tip do the talking if you like. You can feel it through the braid, and as you're dragging it along the bottom, or for me, I can just tell that it's not too bad of an area. Now over to my left, where my left hand rod is, I know it's weedy, so I've got a chod rig on there, on a helicopter rig, helicopter setup shall I say. But for this, some nice areas. I had a lead about earlier. As you can see, there's actually a bit of weed there, so that tells me that it's not too bad, it's not, but there is some weed out there. or there's some weed between, you know, where we landed and, you know, the bank. We'll have one more go. What I'm doing is I'm casting out to the spot, or to a spot, any spot, and just as the lead's coming towards the water, you know, slowing it down, feathering the cast, if you like. That's what it's called. And then just before it hits the water, I'm stopping the spool completely. So I'm going to start to slow it down mid-flight, you know, towards the end, sorry. And then just before it hits the water, I'm just stopping the spool completely, just, you know, as close as I can before it hits the water. Then I'm just bringing the tip back a bit to create some tension in the braid. And then basically I'm lowering it down very slowly, and then you're seeing the kickback, which you'll see now. But essentially that is how you feel the lead down. As for feature finding, you know, as you see in this clip here, as you drag the lead across the leg bed, you know, the tip's telling you what's going on, and you can feel it, you know, almost in the blank. You can feel it on the braid. It does say a lot. Obviously, if you get a big donk, then you know that it's a really nice tough spot. Then when you're dragging across, you know, you might go through, you know, from the hard patch into some gravel, maybe a bit of snaggy, you know, rocks, and then maybe over some silt into some weed. So, you know, a lot can be said for, you know, testing the area. So I'll have another cast. Try and go a bit further out. Again, that was a pretty decent donk, not too bad. Pulling that across, and there's no resistance really at all there, so I would hazard a guess that that's soft, not super soft, but relatively soft. There'll be a bit of weed, just low lying weed, nothing, you know, major. So that's pulling across there nicely. I can't feel a grating, so I know it's not necessarily a solid surface, but I think it's definitely hard enough to present, you know, like a wafter rig, or, you know, a bottom bait rig. Now that's gone graty, so for me that's a bit of a gravel patch. What you'll see in the tip, it kind of flickers and back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip that up here. And I'm going to reel back in, you know, just go to the same spot again. I've clipped it up, I've reeled back in. I'm just going to be basically doing the exact same cast again to the far bank marker that I chose, which for me is, you know, a tree next to the peg on the other side. So there's a train track. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the same spot again, try and hit it again and see if I can feel that gravel patch. Bring the tip back. There it is. So what's happening is it's just almost moving a bit grating style. There it is. Super. So that's like a rocky slash gravel bit, and that is transmitting it so much through this braid, because literally it's almost like it's like dragging a lead across the ground on the floor here. You can very much tell that it's, you know, a rocky area, or a, you know, an area where there's no weed, definitely no silt, because you can almost feel your lead hitting the stones. So for me, I'm going to clip back up again, and just do one more cast of that, just to triply confirm what I already think is there. So what I'm doing now is, I've got my 2 distance sticks set up. I'm now going to get my marker rod. I'm going to lay my lead down at one end and then measure how many times round it goes, and then that will give us how many wraps. Got my lead. Just going to pop it around here. I'm doing my bail arm. Try and stand in, you know, like a middle position, and then I'm just going to go around. 1, 16. So that is pretty much 16.5 wraps. So I know that on my rod that I'm going to fish that spot, that I need to be at 16.5 wraps. It's a real. And then we're back to the beginning. So yeah, now we know it's 16.5 wraps. I'm going to get the rod that I'm going to put on that spot. I'm just going to mark out and clip up to 16.5 wraps. Best to keep a little bit of tension on this, as I've just found. Just got to be careful. So, a bit of tension. Just to make sure it sits nice on the reel, otherwise you might get, you know, a bit of a coil up. That's it. The clip's up. And essentially that's it. So we covered a few bits there. We, you know, one did the, you know, marking, if you like, you know, letting, feeling the area. Then we clipped it up. So the beep on the rod then. Then we clipped it up, you know, recasted, you know, just a handful of times, just to see, you know, just to double confirm, you know, what we thought's there, which is a nice little gravelly kind of rocky area, hard area. Then we, you know, use the distance sticks you know, to measure out how many wraps that was, and then obviously choosing a far bank marker to get to that spot each time, noting obviously where I was putting my feet. I think it's just through the water column, you know, as the line's settling. Yeah, so then we, you know, clipped up and, you know, measured out the wraps on the distance sticks. Then we got our actual rod, and then, you know, clipped that up to the same distance. Felt that down with a really good hard donk. That probably, you know, it's quite a solid surface, so it's probably a little chip on the lead. That's how tough it was. And yeah, so got it out there, chose the far bank marker, cast the rod out, you know, let it hit the clip, and then just followed the lead down. I'd probably say it's around 7, 8, well no, actually it's probably about 12 foot, actually, thinking about it. I don't actually know, but I'm still learning how to, you know, count down with the lead as well, but I'd say I think it's about 12 foot at the bottom here. And that's it for this video. So just a quick recap, you know, leading around, you know, feature finding, if you like, finding nice spots. Like I said, I showed you, we found a bit of weed, we then cast to another spot. You know, as we dragged it back, we found like a little gravelly area, clipped up to that little gravelly area, cast out again to the same spot, obviously double confirmed it. My rod is bleeping away, but it's just a bit smaller, but that's on that spot, so that rod that's bleeping is on the spot that we've just put it on. Could be, you know, just fish passing through, liners, but you know, that's a good place to start. So if you enjoyed the video, you know, definitely please do subscribe. You know, it means a lot, you know, just to hit that subscribe button, and, you know, hit the bell notifications as well, so you can, you know, see any other videos. I haven't named the campaign that I'm doing yet, other than the campaign for the 20, but that'll be coming up, and we'll see you shortly. Cheers.